The year was 2148, and humanity had reached a pinnacle of technological and social advancement. Cities shimmered with towering spires of glass and steel, and Earth had become a hub of interstellar diplomacy and trade. Peace stretched across decades, a rare and fragile tapestry, stitched with careful treaties and whispered negotiations. For all its brilliance, this era carried a sense of quiet fragility, a knowledge that peace, like glass, could shatter at the slightest misstep. Andre Russell stood in the command chamber of the United Global Defense Force, staring at the holographic projection that had silenced the room. The image of a towering alien, scaled and serpentine, loomed above them all, his crimson eyes burned with disdain, his voice resonating with cruel authority. This was Zilzer, the Zorian king, delivering an ultimatum that echoed through the cosmos. Humanity would either send their finest warriors to face his elite, or Earth would burn. The alien's mocking sneer burned in Andre's mind, a grim reminder of their place in the galaxy, small, insignificant, and fragile. The room was charged with tension. Generals, diplomats, and scientists exchanged hushed words, none daring to speak above a whisper. Andre, however, remained silent, his jaw set and fists clenched. This was no ordinary threat. Zilzer was not merely posturing. The hologram had flashed images of devastation, planets consumed in fire, civilizations reduced to ash. The Zorians had made their point. They were unstoppable. When the projection faded, a heavy silence fell over the chamber. General Malcolm Reiner, a seasoned veteran whose grizzled face bore the scars of countless battles, finally broke it. "This isn't just a threat," he said, his voice gravelly and solemn. "It's a test. They want to see if we'll break before the first shot is fired." Andre stepped forward, his presence commanding attention. His reputation preceded him, a decorated soldier, a tactical genius, and a man who had faced loss and come out harder for it. "We can't give them what they want," he said firmly. "If we back down now, we confirm every belief they have about us. Weak, cowardly, unworthy of survival." Lieutenant Marcus Paul, standing to Andre's right, crossed his arms. His sharp features were etched with skepticism. "And what's the alternative? Throw ourselves at their feet, hoping a few soldiers can defeat an empire that's conquered the stars." Andre met his gaze, unflinching. "No, we fight, not for the illusion of victory, but to show them we won't bow. Not now, not ever." Paul's eyes flickered, doubt shadowing his face, but he said nothing. The room descended into heated debate, some advocating for negotiations, others suggesting evacuation plans. But amidst the chaos, a core group led by General Reiner and Andre held firm. They knew the truth. Surrender was not an option. The Zorians didn't negotiate, they consumed. The decision was made with grim finality. Squad Alpha, humanity's most elite strike team, would infiltrate the Zorian capital, Zilzara. Their mission was both simple and impossible: assassinate King Zilzer, dismantle the Zorian command, and deliver a blow that would force their retreat. Andre left the chamber with the weight of the world on his shoulders. As he walked through the sterile corridors of the orbital defense station, he couldn't shake the image of Zilzer's mocking grin. This wasn't just a mission. It was humanity's last stand. In the hangar, his team waited. Sergeant Alan Graves, a hulking figure with arms like steel beams, leaned against a crate, inspecting his plasma rifle. Corporal Leo Chun, ever silent and watchful, sat cross-legged on the floor, calibrating his sniper scope. Marcus Paul stood apart, his expression unreadable as he reviewed tactical schematics on his wrist display. Andre took a moment to study them. They weren't just soldiers, they were the best Earth had to offer. Each carried their own scars, their own burdens, but together they were a force to be reckoned with. Andre stepped into their midst, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. "We've all seen the transmission. You know what's at stake." He paused, letting the gravity of the situation sink in. "This isn't just a mission, it's a message. We show them what humanity's made of." Graves grinned, a wolfish smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "About time someone put those scaly bastards in their place." Chun nodded silently, his gaze unwavering. Paul, however, hesitated before speaking. "We're walking into the heart of their empire with a handful of weapons and a prayer." "Do you really think this is winnable?" Andre met his doubt head on. "It's not about winning, Marcus. It's about showing them we won't go quietly. They called us cowards. Let's prove them wrong." The launch was swift, the hum of the wormhole engine filling the small craft as it tore through space. Andre sat in the cockpit, staring out at the swirling vortex of the wormhole. His mind raced with possibilities, strategies, and contingencies. But beneath it all was a gnawing fear, a fear he couldn't afford to show. Not now, not ever. When the wormhole spat them out over Zilzara, the sight stole the breath from everyone on board. The planet was a vast crimson wasteland, its surface dotted with jagged black spires that reached hungrily for the blood-red sky. Andre tightened his grip on the controls. This was it. No turning back. As the craft descended into the hostile atmosphere, alarms blared. Zilzara's defense systems had detected their approach. Plasma turrets lit up the sky, forcing Andre to juke and dive through a deadly gauntlet. The team braced themselves, tension thick in the cabin. Andre's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and commanding. "Hold on, this is gonna get rough." The ship skidded to a halt in a desolate canyon, smoke billowing from its engines. Andre unclipped his harness, his voice calm despite the adrenaline coursing through him. "We're on the ground. Move out." As they stepped into the alien world, the weight of their mission bore down on them. This was enemy territory, and every shadow felt like a threat. Andre led the way, his team moving silently behind him. The air was thick, almost suffocating, and the ground beneath their boots felt unnervingly alive. For now, the only sound was their own breathing, the faint hum of distant machinery, and the ever-present machinery, and the ever-present beat of their hearts. The shadows stretched long across the jagged terrain of Zilzara as Squad Alpha moved in formation, their steps muffled by the alien soil. The oppressive atmosphere weighed heavily on them, not just physically but psychologically. Each member carried their own thoughts like armor, their silence punctuated only by the occasional static from their comms. The stakes were clear. Any misstep could end the mission before it even began. Andre led the group, his eyes scanning every corner, every movement in the dim, crimson light. His mind raced, not with fear, but with the weight of decisions yet to come. They were on a knife's edge, and he knew it. Behind him, Marcus Paul walked with a precision born of years of training, though his furrowed brow betrayed his unease. Graves was a solid presence, the rhythmic sound of his plasma rifle being adjusted serving as a steady counterpoint to the tension. Chun, as always, was silent, his sniper rifle cradled in his arms, his gaze darting between the team and the alien horizon. The first hurdle came sooner than expected. Andre held up a hand, signaling a halt. Ahead, a patrol of Zorian soldiers moved in formation, their scaled bodies glinting in the faint light. Their movements were methodical, their heads swiveling with unnerving precision as they scanned the terrain. Andre crouched low, his voice a whisper through the comms. 5 targets, silent takedown, no mistakes. The team split into practice positions, their movements fluid and soundless. Graves moved first, his massive frame somehow a shadow as he crept up behind one of the Zorians. With a brutal efficiency, he snapped the soldier's neck, lowering the body gently to the ground. Marcus flanked left, dispatching another with his plasma dagger, the blade humming faintly as it pierced alien flesh. Chun, perched on a nearby outcrop, took down 2 more with surgical precision, each shot landing silently and lethally. Andre handled the last, his plasma blade slicing through the air in a clean, decisive arc. Within moments, the patrol was gone, their bodies blending into the crimson dust. Marcus straightened, his voice low but tense. "They're too well organized. This isn't just a military force, it's a machine." Andre wiped the blade of his weapon and turned to the group. "And machines can break. Let's move." The team pressed forward, their path leading them toward the outskirts of the Zorian fortress. The towering black spires loomed closer, their sharp angles casting distorted shadows that seemed to reach for the intruders. It was Marcus who spotted it first, the faint glimmer of an energy grid, nearly invisible against the dark backdrop. "Force field," he muttered, his tone laced with frustration. "They've got layers of defenses." Andre knelt, studying the faint shimmer. "Chun, can you take it down?" The sniper nodded, already unpacking a compact device from his gear. His fingers moved deftly over the controls, his focus unbroken. As the others kept watch, Marcus edged closer to Andre. His voice was quiet but edged with concern. "This is too smooth for them. If they're this prepared for an invasion, they're expecting us. Andre didn't look away from the horizon. They don't expect us to succeed. The force field flickered, then vanished with a faint hum. Chun packed up the device, his expression as calm as ever. It's down. They moved through the breach, their senses heightened. The courtyard was eerily quiet, the stillness broken only by the faint hum of alien machinery. Andre led the way, his movements deliberate as he guided the team toward the fortress walls. But the moment they stepped into the open, the silence shattered. An alarm blared, its piercing sound cutting through the night. Lights flared to life, bathing the courtyard in harsh, unnatural hues. Andre cursed under his breath as the first wave of Zorian guards poured from the fortress, their energy blades crackling to life. "Contact!" he shouted, raising his weapon. The fight erupted in a cacophony of plasma fire and guttural roars. Andre moved like a force of nature, his blade cutting through the air as he engaged the first wave. Graves was a wall of fury, his plasma rifle unleashing devastating bursts that sent Zorian bodies flying. Marcus directed their movements with sharp, concise commands, his tactical mind turning chaos into strategy. Chun provided cover from a higher vantage point, each shot precise and lethal, but the Zorians were relentless. For every soldier they took down, two more seemed to take their place. Andre's calm crackled with Marcus's voice. "We're exposed. We need cover." Andre scanned the battlefield, his mind racing. A cluster of crates near the fortress wall caught his eye. Graves, Chun, suppressing fire, Marcus with me. He dashed toward the crates, Marcus close behind. Together, they shoved them into a makeshift barricade, giving the team a brief reprieve. As they regrouped, Graves's voice came through, grim and steady. "They're not slowing down. We need to move or we'll be overrun." Andre's jaw tightened. "Chun, can you disable their comms?" The sniper nodded, already working on a secondary device. Moments later, the air was filled with static as the Zorian communication network flickered and died. The effect was immediate. The soldiers faltered, their movements less coordinated. Andre seized the moment. Now, push forward. The team fought their way to the fortress entrance, each step hard-won. The massive doors loomed before them, their surface etched with alien symbols that seemed to pulse with energy. Graves moved to plant charges, his movements quick and practiced. The explosion was controlled but powerful, the doors groaning open with an ominous creak. Beyond them lay the dark interior of the fortress, its corridors stretching into shadows that seemed to swallow the light. Andre turned to his team, his expression hard but resolute. This is it, no turning back. They stepped inside, the oppressive silence of the fortress enveloping them. Every sound seemed amplified, the scrape of boots against the floor, the faint hum of alien machinery. Andre felt the tension in the air, a weight that pressed on all of them. They were deep in enemy territory now, and the real fight was just beginning. The fortress's interior was a labyrinth of obsidian corridors, each turn disorienting, each shadow a potential threat. Andre's senses were on overdrive, his focus razor-sharp as he led the team deeper into enemy territory. The oppressive atmosphere pressed in on them, and the faint hum of alien machinery pulsed like a heartbeat through the walls. The mission had entered its most precarious stage, and every decision now carried the weight of life and death. The team moved silently, each step measured, their weapons ready. Chun held the rear, his sharp eyes scanning for movement, while Marcus used his tactical visor to map potential threats. Graves stayed close to Andre, his sheer presence a source of unspoken reassurance. They had trained for scenarios like this, but the reality was grimmer, heavier than any simulation. The Zorians knew their terrain, and it wouldn't be long before they regrouped. Andre signaled a stop, raising his hand. Ahead, the corridor split into three branching paths. He knelt, studying the faint energy signatures visible through his visor. The fortress was alive, its defenses a network of traps designed to eliminate intruders. "They're funneling us," Marcus murmured, crouching beside him. "If we choose wrong, we're dead." Andre nodded, his jaw tightening. "Suggestions?" Marcus tapped his visor, overlaying tactical data onto the map. "Left leads to a heat signature cluster, likely a guard station. Right has power surges, maybe an energy field. Center's our best bet, but it's too quiet." Andre's eyes narrowed as he considered the options. Quiet's dangerous, but we don't have time to clear every path. He motioned forward. Center, stay sharp. The corridor stretched long and unbroken, the silence so complete it felt unnatural. Each step brought a rising tension, the feeling that something unseen watched from the shadows. Andre's gut churned with instinctive unease, and just as they reached the halfway point, a sudden hiss broke the stillness. Zorian drones, sleek and lethal, dropped from hidden panels in the ceiling. Their energy blades buzzed to life, their movements swift and predatory. Ambush! Andre shouted, raising his plasma rifle. The team sprang into action, the corridor erupting into chaos. Graves stepped forward, his rifle spitting bolts of energy that cut through the first wave. Marcus called out coordinates, directing their fire with precision, while Chun picked off drones from the rear, his sniper rifle humming with deadly efficiency. Andre weaved through the fray, his blade slicing through drones that came too close. The drones moved with an unsettling grace, their metallic bodies absorbing damage that would have incapacitated organic soldiers. For everyone they destroyed, another seemed to take its place. "They're wearing us down," Graves bellowed, his voice straining with effort. Andre gritted his teeth. They couldn't afford to be bogged down. "Marcus, find us an exit. I'm trying," Marcus snapped, his fingers flying over his tactical pad. A flicker of light appeared on his visor, and he pointed to a side panel. There, maintenance hatch. Graves covered the team as they fell back, his weapon overheating from continuous fire. Chun was the last through the hatch, slamming it shut just as the drones reached them. The team collapsed against the walls of the narrow maintenance tunnel, catching their breath. Andre's chest heaved, but his mind was already racing. They were behind schedule, and every delay gave the Zorians more time to prepare. Marcus broke the silence, his tone sharp. "We can't keep this up. We're burning through resources, and they're not even trying yet." Andre met his gaze, his voice steady despite the tension. "We don't have a choice. We push forward." The tunnel led them to a vast underground chamber, its ceiling lost in shadows. Massive conduits crisscrossed the space, humming with energy. At the center stood a console, its alien interface glowing faintly. Chun moved to it immediately, his hands flying over the controls. "This ties into their defense grid," he muttered. "I can disrupt their tracking systems, but it won't last long." "Do it," Andre ordered. As Chun worked, Marcus scanned the chamber, his unease growing. "This is too exposed. If they find us here," the words died in his throat as a deafening roar echoed through the chamber. From the shadows, hulking Zorian elites emerged, their biometallic armor gleaming ominously. They were larger than any enemy the team had faced, their energy blades crackling with raw power. "Here they come," Graves shouted, stepping forward to meet the charge. The battle was brutal. The elites fought with a ferocity that pushed Squad Alpha to their limits. Andre darted between the towering figures, his strikes precise but barely penetrating their armor. Graves held the line, his raw strength matched only by his determination, while Chun fired from cover, each shot finding its mark but doing little to slow the onslaught. Marcus coordinated their movements, calling out weak points and directing fire, but the elites pressed relentlessly forward. Graves took a devastating hit, an energy blade slicing through his armor. He dropped to one knee, blood staining the floor beneath him. Andre surged to his side, felling the elite responsible with a vicious strike. "Graves, hold on," he growled, dragging him to cover. Graves's face was pale, his voice strained but resolute. "Keep moving. Don't stop for me." Andre ignored him, turning to Chun. "How much longer?" "Almost there," Chun shouted, his focus unbroken. A second later, the console sparked, and the hum of the conduits changed pitch. "It's done. Their grid's down, but it won't hold." Andre made a snap decision. "Marcus, get Graves out of here. Chun and I will cover you." Marcus hesitated, his eyes flicking between Andre and Graves. "You can't take them on alone." "I don't plan to," Andre replied sharply. "Now move." Reluctantly, Marcus slung Graves' arm over his shoulder and retreated down the tunnel. Chun took position beside Andre, his sniper rifle humming with readiness. "We can't hold this for long," Chun said quietly. "We don't need long," Andre replied, his gaze fixed on the approaching elites. They fought side by side, every movement calculated, every shot and strike buying precious seconds. When the last elite fell, Andre turned to Chun, his voice urgent. "Let's go." They regrouped with Marcus and Graves in a dim corridor, the sounds of pursuit growing louder behind them. Andre's mind raced as he calculated their next move. They had made it this far, but the fortress wasn't finished with them yet. The path to the throne room lay ahead, but it would come at a cost none of them were fully prepared to pay. The hallway leading to the throne room stretched endlessly before them, the towering walls lined with jagged obsidian carvings that seemed to absorb the light. Each step felt heavier, the weight of their mission pressing down as if the fortress itself was alive, trying to crush their resolve. Andre led the way, his focus unwavering despite the fatigue etched into his every movement. Graves leaned heavily on Marcus, his breathing labored but his grip on his weapon steady. Chun brought up the rear, silent as ever, his sniper rifle at the ready. Andre paused at the final set of doors, massive slabs of alien metal engraved with intricate patterns that pulsed faintly with crimson light. He turned to his team, his voice low but firm. "This is it. Whatever happens, we don't stop until Zilzer is down. We finish this." Graves managed a faint grin through the pain. "About time we showed that overgrown lizard what humans are made of." Marcus nodded, his jaw tight. "No mistakes. We stick to the plan." Andre's gaze lingered on Chun, who gave a single resolute nod. They all knew the stakes. There was no room for hesitation, no margin for error. Andre stepped forward and pushed against the doors, which groaned open with a deafening creak, revealing the throne room. The space was cavernous, the high ceiling disappearing into darkness. Black pillars lined the walls, their surfaces glinting with an unnatural sheen. At the far end of the room, Zilzer sat on a massive throne carved from alien metal, his golden armor gleaming under the dull red glow of the dying star visible through a jagged skylight above. He was larger than any Zorian they had faced, his form radiating an almost palpable aura of power and authority. Zilzer rose slowly, his movements deliberate, each step echoing ominously in the vast chamber. His glowing red eyes fixed on the intruders, a cruel smile curling at the edges of his scaled mouth. "So," he hissed, his voice reverberating like a thunderclap, "the humans finally crawl to my feet. Tell me, did you come to die as cowards or fools?" Andre stepped forward, his blade humming to life, its blue glow a stark contrast to the oppressive red of the room. "We came to end this. No more threats. No more destruction. Just you and me." Zilzer chuckled, a guttural, mocking sound that sent shivers down their spines. Brave words for a creature so fragile. He drew his weapon, a massive energy blade that crackled with raw, chaotic power. "Let us see if they mean anything." The Zorian king lunged with terrifying speed, closing the distance in an instant. Andre barely had time to parry, the force of the strike sending him sliding back. The ground beneath their feet trembled as the battle began, each clash of blades sending shock waves through the air. Zilzer's strength was overwhelming, his every strike carrying the weight of a wrecking ball. Andre countered with agility, darting in and out of range, landing precise strikes that barely scratched the king's armor. Marcus barked orders, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Graves, suppress the guards. Chun, take the high ground." The room erupted into chaos as Zilzer's remaining elite guards poured in from hidden alcoves. Graves, despite his injuries, unleashed a barrage of plasma fire, holding the line with grim determination. Chun moved like a shadow, scaling a pillar to gain a vantage point. His sniper shots rang out, each one finding its mark, thinning the ranks of the Zorian guards. Andre stayed locked in combat with Zilzer, each second testing the limits of his endurance. The king's mocking voice grated in his ears. "You are weak, a flea trying to bite a dragon." Andre gritted his teeth, his mind racing for an opening. "Baby," he growled. But even a flea can be deadly if it strikes the right spot. As Andre drew Zilzer's attention, Marcus moved toward the base of the throne, planting charges on the structural supports. He worked quickly, his hands steady despite the chaos around him. "Andre, keep him busy," he shouted over the comms. Zilzer roared, his blade crashing down in a devastating arc. Andre rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding the blow, and retaliated with a flurry of strikes aimed at the joints in the king's armor. For the first time, Zilzer faltered, a faint crack appearing along his left pauldron. Andre pressed the advantage, his attacks relentless. Above them, Chun took out the last of the guards, his calm voice cutting through the comms. "Clear. Focus on Zilzer." Graves moved to cover Marcus as he finished arming the charges. "How much longer?" Graves asked, his voice strained. Just a few more seconds, Marcus replied, sweat beading on his brow. We need to time this perfectly. Andre heard the exchange, his resolve hardening. He lunged forward, aiming for the exposed joint in Zilzer's armor. The blade found its mark, sinking deep into the king's side. Zilzer bellowed in pain, staggering back. For the first time, there was a flicker of doubt in his glowing eyes. You dare, Zilzer growled, his voice raw with fury. Andre didn't let him finish. Marcus now, he shouted, breaking away as the charges detonated. The explosion shook the throne room, the supports crumbling under the force. Zilzer stumbled, the massive throne collapsing behind him. Andre seized the moment, driving his blade into the king's chest with all his strength. Zilzer let out a final guttural roar before collapsing, his massive form crumpling to the ground. The room fell silent, the oppressive weight lifting as the Zorian king took his last breath. Andre stood over him, his chest heaving, blood and sweat streaking his face. Marcus and Graves approached, their expressions a mixture of relief and exhaustion. Chon descended from his perch, his calm demeanor unshaken. Andre turned to his team, his voice steady but laced with emotion. It's done. They didn't linger. The fortress was collapsing around them, the detonations triggering a chain reaction that would ensure its destruction. The team made their way to the extraction point, the sounds of distant explosions chasing them through the halls. As their ship ascended into the crimson sky, Andre looked out at the crumbling fortress below. The Zorian Empire had lost its king, its center of power shattered, but the victory felt bittersweet. The cost had been high, and the road ahead remained uncertain. Humanity had delivered a message, but only time would tell if it would be enough to secure their future. For now, they had survived, and that was enough.